Hello, everyone. Welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar here at Doman International, where we take questions from parents with children with special needs around the world, and we, take on their most important and toughest questions about their children and their development. And so, wherever you are in the world, feel free to join in, ask your questions, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. You can post your questions, or if you're here in StreamYard, which is the platform we use for this question and answer session, feel free to post your questions here as well. I do want to point out something a little different that we're doing this week. I'm posting a link to actually join our webinar. And so if you're courageous and you want to jump on and ask your questions on video, please do so, because it's really nice. It allows not only for us to answer your questions, but also it allows for me to ask follow-up questions. And sometimes that can be really useful. It can make these sessions even more helpful for parents because we can get into more depth into the needs of their child. Okay, so if you look down at the comments on social media, you'll see a link there for StreamYard. Click on that link, join our webinar, and you can start asking us your questions. So I look forward to seeing you. Well, if we start off with maybe a couple of announcements before we jump into questions. Oh, by the way, I'm posting the StreamYard link also on Instagram as well. So if anyone wants to use that link, they can join and ask questions. A couple of announcements about Doman International moving forward. So first of all, we've got a lot of trips planned. We have a group of staff right now in Serbia and Croatia, seeing families in those parts of the world. But just to tell you about some of our upcoming trips, in April, we're sending staff to our European Center in Italy. In May, I'm going to be going to India with members of our Indian team and seeing families there. We're going to, in June, be seeing families in California. In August, we'll be going back to Miami and also to New Zealand and Australia. And of course, we're headquartered here in Philadelphia in the United States. And so we're seeing families year-round here in Philadelphia. So those were my announcements. Any announcements that you'd like to make, Colleen?
One little thing, Spencer, I think we're live on Doman Learning on Instagram, not on Doman International.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, let me see if I can fix this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other announcements from you, Colleen?
Announcements, yes, we are continuing to schedule initial appointments in Philadelphia and remotely. And we are actually looking at potentially adding some, I think it's almost certain we will be adding some dates for initial appointments, which is really exciting. So keep in touch about that. Just waiting to hear back from a couple of key people to make sure that we've got everything in place, and then we'll be able to expand our offerings for Philadelphia. I'm really happy.
Yeah, and I want to say to everyone out there, last week we realized we had a 4-month waiting list for people to come to Philadelphia, and so we're adding more dates, as Colleen mentioned, so that parents don't have to wait that long to come and see us. But so be in touch with Colleen about that. But the reason why I'm telling you this is if you want to come to Philadelphia, even if you're thinking, oh, I want to come later in the year, it's best to reach out to us as soon as possible so that we can schedule you. All right. I'm just playing around here. I'm fighting with Instagram. Let's see if I think I can get us live there. Okay. I believe we're live there now. Perfect. Okay. Well, listen, while I'm waiting for questions to come in, right, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, or, YouTube, go ahead and start typing your questions in and I'll get to them in order. I wanted to just talk about, one topic that I often get asked about, which is speech development in kids with special needs. And if you have read yet our books, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, which is a book I'd recommend to any parent with a child with a special need or even a developmental delay, I'd recommend this book. Colleen actually mentioned to me recently, she was speaking to a mother who had some developmental concerns about her child, but child hadn't really received a diagnosis yet. They hadn't been told if the child had a neurodevelopmental issue. And so Colleen was saying, would this book be good for that family? And the answer is absolutely yes. Even if you have a concern with just one area of your child's development, speech, mobility, vision, learning problems, right? Whatever it might be, comprehension, we would recommend this book. And then specifically for families with a child with an autism diagnosis, we recommend the book Answering Autism. Now, in both of these books, there is a whole chapter on speech development, and I would recommend that to any family with a child who may be not yet verbal or even who has delayed speech development. And I wanted to talk about one of the activities that's described in the book. So the speech development chapter is chapter 10. And one of the activities that we cover is using songs to develop speech development for children with special needs. Interestingly, this is also a very good activity even for well babies who aren't yet talking because they're infants and their speech isn't developed yet. So the way we use songs, well, first of all, let me talk about why we use songs and music for speech development. First of all, children tend to love music. It's a great way to encourage them to talk. It makes it fun. And that's going to be very important because we need to have a way of motivating the child to talk. And music is a good way to do that. What we do with the speech development program is we begin by singing a song to the child. So imagine you're singing Happy Birthday, right? And you're singing the song Happy Birthday to your child. So happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Colleen, happy birthday to you. And you would sing that to your child 3 times in a day. 3 times in a day because we want to give the child some frequency and repetition. What I would recommend to a family, you do that for a week. And then after a week, you start to drop a single word from the song for the child, right? So you'd say, all right, let's sing happy birthday, right? Before you sing, you should always tell your child what you're going to do so they can prepare for it. You sing it, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Colleen, happy birthday to, and then you're silent. You leave the last word of the song for the child to fill in. What is really positive about this program is that when the child makes a sound, it may not sound perfectly like the word you, right? It may not be perfectly articulated. It might sound like ooh or something like that. But you and your child both know that your child is saying you. The quality may not be good, right? The articulation may not be good, but both of you basically have a contract that your child is saying the word you. And that's very important. It's kind of like breaking down the sound barrier between parent and a child. And the child now knows, wow, I can actually say things that mom and dad understand. And so after that first week, you would leave that last word for your child. You have to be patient. Sometimes children need 10, 15, 20 seconds to fill in that word. And so don't be impatient. Sometimes parents, after 2 or 3 seconds, the child doesn't say anything, the parent will kind of move on with the session or they'll just fill in the word themselves. It's actually important to kind of sit there, wait, and give your child some time to say the word. Often it's good to count in your head. So you think like 1, 2, 3. You think that to yourself as you're waiting for your child. First of all, it gives you something to do. And that often makes parents feel more comfortable while they're waiting. But also it allows you to measure what is called the system response time delay, which is the amount of time that your child takes to actually give a response. Many children know immediately, they know they want to say the word you, but it takes them time because of their neurodevelopmental issue to actually produce that word. And so that system response time delay is a symptom of their neurodevelopmental issue. But as your child gets better and better at this, you'll start to see that time reducing. So maybe in the beginning, it takes them 10 seconds to say the word you, but after a few days, now they say it in 5 seconds and then 3 seconds and then immediately. And so this is a very good way of helping motivate a child to talk. I would begin with one song, but after a few weeks, I'd put in a new song. So I'd stop maybe Happy Birthday, especially because kids will start to bore of the same song over and over. And now instead of Happy Birthday, we'll do Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay. And then maybe after 3 weeks, we go to Itsy Bitsy Spider. Okay. And that way you are, always giving your child something new and fun to do. So again, the speech development chapter, the songs are the first activity, but we go into other activities like using rhymes to encourage speech development. We talk about something called the language board. We talk about the choice board. So there are a lot of different communication and speech tools in this book that I think would be really helpful for a lot of parents out there. Well, I can see that we have Joy on YouTube who said hi to us. Hi, Joy. And for everyone who's just joining, we have a link on our social media where you can actually join this webinar and ask your questions. Okay, so you can actually jump into the webinar, ask Colleen and I any questions that you have. I've posted a link there for you on Facebook and now on Instagram as well. You should see a link there to join. All right, so go ahead, start typing your questions in and we will take them in order, or click on the link and join our webinar. Colleen, in terms of all the families that you've been talking with recently, any common questions that you have that have been coming up, or themes to questions?
The speech. So I was really happy that you were bringing that up, because it is, I think that the parents we get, who contact us, they already know their kids are very, very smart. But they also know that the longer they go without being able to produce speech or use it correctly or be fluent, the harder it is for them to convince other people how smart they are. I did have a mother ask me the other day. She said her child had been given a communication device at school, but was not interested in using it at all. But she said that he does point to things, and she's even been starting to teach him to read, which I said is great. So she said, I just don't know, though, this communication device doesn't seem to be getting us where we thought it would go. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we have any experience with families using those, because that seems to be a question that comes up. Of course, I tell them we want them to talk, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So there are many, especially now with technology being so prevalent, there are a lot of augmented communication tools, apps that children can use where maybe they can point to different pictures to indicate what they want. These apps can be helpful and in some ways, but they're limited. Okay, so let me talk about the positive things about these apps. First of all, it gives a child potentially a way to communicate who could not communicate at all, maybe if they don't have any speech. So that's a positive thing, right? Because that way they can indicate if they want to go on a walk, or, they want to read a book. If that is presented as one of the options, they can answer it. Now, let me say the flip side of this. I said that these apps tend to be very limited because the options that are presented are the options that the creators think a child with communication problems would want to answer. So you'll often look at them and you'll see things like cookies. There's a lot of like food, I find options there. Now, of course, kids who are on our diet aren't usually eating those foods regardless. But I tend to find, I think because it comes from PECS, which is an ABA therapy. A lot of these tools come from PECS, which is an ABA therapy. A lot of it is food-based. It's like you point at the cookies, you get the cookies. And we've talked I had actually the first show of this year, we had Jordan Ernest on, who's one of my colleagues, and we talked about ABA because she's received ABA training. And we talked about a lot of the problems with ABA therapy. So I won't get much into that topic. But I would say that those tools tend to be very limited. So positive in some ways, but limited. And so goal number one, of course, is to get the child talking. And that's why we have tools for speech development. And then we also have different programs that may help with speech development. It may not be obvious to a newcomer, that's like the Doman reading program, or that are respiratory programs that help improve the breathing of the child, can all help speech, but they can. So we try to take a holistic approach towards speech. When we talk, we use 8 to 12 different areas of our brain just to talk. Okay. So you need a holistic program that's going to address different areas of the brain to help a child learn to speak for the first time. And so these augmented communication programs, I would say, have a fair limited shelf life. I also tend to find that there's no progression in them. The child is just limited to like a small group of options. And so that's why one of the reasons why we teach children to read, one of the many reasons, is because it naturally can lead to typing and writing. So along with helping a child's speech, they can often also communicate via writing and typing, which is incredibly valuable, as you can imagine. So so I would say they're positive in the sense they give a child an option where there are none, but we tend to use other programs that help a child's speech and communication ability develop faster.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. That's really, really useful. I just saw here, so Joy and I have actually been in correspondence. I just emailed you, Joy, because I owed you an email. I'm sorry. Could we talk about the remote appointment? Because it is, it's a real possibility for families for travel is impossible.
Sure. Yeah. So we offer at Doman International both in-person appointments at different locations. I mentioned, I think, 9 locations earlier where we do in-person appointments, but we also offer remote appointments. We've been doing remote appointments for over 10 years. Obviously, during COVID, there was a certain point where like 95% of the appointments we were doing were remote. So we've become very experienced with remote appointments. And I have to say, very good at them as well. We've become very good at, for example, evaluating a child with special needs via video conferencing, which to some would seem like an impossible task, but we've gotten pretty good at it. So the remote appointment option is really good for families who had difficulty with travel. And that could be for many reasons, right? That could be, family members ill, or a visa problem prohibits them from traveling, which unfortunately has become more of an issue in the last few decades. Or sometimes it might even simply be a financial or a cost decision, okay? Because getting on a flight with 3 or 4 people can be expensive. So whatever the reason is, the remote option is an excellent alternative to a live appointment. Usually when parents ask me, should we do a live appointment or a remote, I will usually say, if you're able to travel in the next couple of months, do the live appointment. Because listen, as great as the remote appointment is, and it is great, there's just no substitute for being in the same room at the same time. Okay. However, if traveling is not something which is possible for you in the next couple of months, the remote appointment is a far superior option to do soon rather than wait a long time to come in person, right? So if you say to me, what's better, do a remote appointment now or come for a live appointment in 6 months? I'd say do the remote appointment now, because the benefits you're going to get are so great from that. It's much more valuable to do the remote appointment now than the cons, right, of waiting 6 months to get started. Okay, so that would be my answer. Any additional thoughts you have to that, Colleen?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I am really glad that we have that option available. Even though I tell parents the same thing, that live, we all know there's no substitute for that, but we can do so much in the remote appointment. And it's also, it's very flexible because we do recognize that a lot of our families have big obligations otherwise, whether it's work or family or whatever. So we can be flexible, and you can get your kid going in the right direction sooner, as Spencer said. So thank you very much. So yeah, Joy, we're going to be in touch very soon. I sent you an email, and we'll get it scheduled very shortly. Okay, thank you.
Now, I see a bunch of you have asked questions on Facebook. I see Joy's on YouTube. We have people on Instagram. I've included a link. If you want to click on that link, you'll join this webinar with Colleen and I, and you can ask your question face to face. And that's really nice because it allows us to have a more in-depth conversation, which I think actually would be even more helpful for all of you. All right, let me jump to the next question. I have a question here on Instagram from the B Family blog. It says, excuse me, I recently welcomed my beautiful son with Down syndrome and feel a little overwhelmed with where to start. Would you recommend the book first, or is there an introductory online video? Thank you. Colleen, I'll let you start with this one, and then I'll give my thoughts. Like, where do you feel is the best place to start for a baby with Down syndrome?
Well, I mean, if you've got a really new baby, then maybe the Fit Baby, Smart Baby book. I mean, obviously you need to read the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. But if you're in that newborn stage and you're just not even sure, he needs to be, he or she. Sorry, did we know, boy or girl? Well, your little one needs to be on. Okay, yeah, little guy. He needs to be on the floor immediately. He needs to have as much opportunity to move as possible. Assuming he has no other physical issues. I hope that he's healthy. But all of those, the newborn stimulation, if you can get going on that immediately, I think that would be the biggest leap. And then as you are acclimating, again, I don't know how new he is, but I just remember in those first couple of weeks, I couldn't read anything more challenging than like a People magazine. So little bits would be very helpful, but just knowing, okay, let's get on the floor, let's help as much as possible, especially before he starts to gain weight. Eventually you'll probably want to have an inclined floor for him, but at the moment, if you can just start giving him all the opportunity in the world to move, it can really.
Yeah. Some additional thoughts to that. So Colleen mentioned how difficult it is when you have a baby to read a book. So the Doman Method book is available on audiobook on Amazon. So if you're the kind of person it's hard for you to pick up a book right now, you could listen to that in the background. And I definitely recommend that book, for a family with a child with Down syndrome. Second thing I'd recommend is I think it's great you're attending this webinar. I honestly, I feel that probably if I met a family on the street with a newborn baby with Down syndrome, probably one of the first things I tell them to do is actually come to the webinar, because we touch on so many things in this webinar that I think will be helpful. I think what Colleen pointed out about physical development is so important. Look at the most common concerns about babies with Down syndrome: poor muscle tone, issues with neck control. Even when you look at as they become older, balance issues, coordination issues, weight issues, right? Which is not an issue that we have with children who are raised on the Doman Method program, but is a problem with the obesity, is a very large problem with the Down syndrome population at large. All of those issues can be greatly, either completely prevented or greatly reduced when a child gets a lot of motor opportunities at a young age. And that starts by allowing them to crawl. And actually, during last week's webinar, I pulled up a video with my dad, Douglas, of a baby named Beckham with Down syndrome crawling down a crawling track, which is a part of our newborn development program. So definitely motor development is a crucial place to begin. So I definitely recommend the book. I'd also recommend that you jump. Oh, she clarified here, Colleen. He's 5 months old and generally in good health. Does have low muscle tone. Thanks for the helpful tips, Colleen. Yeah. So while we talk more, I'm going to try to pull up maybe some videos that we can look at together, but it might take me a second.
Thank you for mentioning the audiobook, Spencer. I always forget about that because I don't really use audiobooks, and we certainly didn't have that before when Olivia was little. So it is a really great resource for parents to have that on and be able to just start hearing. I'll
Yeah.
make a point of mentioning
Yeah.
that.
And some people, it's just really hard to find time to read a book. Yeah. So I'm going to pull up two different videos that have been posted recently on Doman International social media, because I think they do a really good job of, demonstrating early motor development. And keep in mind, this is important for all children with developmental delays, special needs. Doesn't matter if they've been diagnosed with Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy. This relates to all kids. Okay. So here you can see a video of Beckham, and you can see him here crawling down the Doman infant crawling track. The crawling track you can see is inclined, and it's inclined for a reason because it makes it easier for him to crawl, right? When it's inclined, the enemy of gravity, right? Gravity pulls our bodies down toward the center of the earth, and it makes crawling for a child more difficult. But when we incline, we take the enemy of gravity and make it into a friend. Because now if he moves slightly, he can move down that infant crawling track. Beckham learned to crawl first on the inclined crawling track. And then, as you can see in this video, he now can crawl on his belly on the flat floor. Okay. And so that's the progression that we're looking for. Please note here, again, many children with Down syndrome known to have poor muscle tone. They tend to have very weak, floppy necks. Look how good his neck control is, right? Because now that he's on his belly, he has to pick his head up to look at the environment around him. This is why tummy time is so important for not just mobility development, but also for, as I said, good neck control. I wanted to, you're watching him crawl here. Watch him on the incline track one more time. Why is this incline crawling track so successful? Besides the fact it's inclined, it's also smooth, right? We want the child to be crawling on a smooth surface. Please also note his arms and legs are bare. That allows him to dig in with his arms and legs and learn how to crawl. So that is, I think, a great example of the importance of motor development. While we're on the topic of different kinds of, here you can see a video of Matthew, and you can see here Matthew also learned how to crawl on the inclined floor. And you can see this is him 2 months later, and he's crawling. And I want to point out here, he's not on a smooth surface. He's crawling here on a carpet, which is far more difficult because it provides a lot more resistance. And Matthew's doing a great job there. So often when a child is first successful crawling on a smooth surface, we move to the carpeted surface. Since I'm already here, I just wanted to show this. This is a quick video of, this is Sophia. Sophia has Down syndrome. In this video, I believe she's 5 years old. And she came to Doman International for an appointment. And this is one of our coaches just showing how to do tactile stimulation, right? So along with motor opportunities, we'd also provide a cognitive program, and sensory stimulation is an important part of this. So here we're telling her, this is a soft sensation. So she's feeling it, right? Many children with Down syndrome have tactile problems. This is a rough brush. So she was getting contrasting textures in that session. So soft stimulation, and then like a rougher texture. Okay. So just wanted to show you some videos. Hopefully that's helpful. And I'd also say, I would recommend to jump on a call with Colleen because
So that's the next thing I was going to say. Please, let's talk on the phone.
Yeah, but here, the thing is, you're here at the perfect age, right? Doing this with a 5-month-old, it's perfect. The earlier you can get started, the better. All right. Anything else you want to add, Colleen, before we jump into the next question?
No, that's it. Just my phone number is country code 1 because I'm in the U.S. 814-232-8668. And you can send me a WhatsApp message if you're outside the U.S. And I will answer you. But yeah, just give me a call and I'll get back to you, and we'll, or pick up the phone if I can, and we will definitely get some more questions answered for you. But yeah, I'm so happy that you found us.
Great. Yeah, and I've thrown Colleen's number up there. Next, we're going to go to Haley's question. I do want to say, if you're joining, if you're on, doesn't matter what social media platform you're on, if you click on the link, you'll see a link that says join here. If you click on that StreamYard link, you'll come into our webinar and you can ask us questions on video and we can have a good back and forth conversation. All right, here is Haley's question. Haley is saying, is there a big leap from 4 to 5 years old? My son has been diagnosed as a Gestalt language processor, and his language is all of a sudden making big improvements. He is turning 5 in November. Well, first of all, Haley, it's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that his language is making big improvements. Now, do I think that it has something to do with his chronological age of going from 4 to 5 years old? Probably not. And the reason why I say that is that, if we look at an average child, usually their most explosive language development happens between 18 months and 3 years of age. So it's not like I would look at the age of 4 to 5 as any more or less critical than, let's say, 3 to 4 or 5 to 6, if that makes sense. So my guess is, if his speech is developing, it's probably because you're doing certain things with him, or he's getting certain things that are helpful for his speech development. And that could be something that you're doing on purpose. That could be because you're doing certain parts of the Doman program or some other treatment. You'd have to tell me that might be helping his speech development. Now, sometimes it might be something else that has occurred that isn't maybe obvious to an outside observer, but can be very, very helpful for speech development. Let me give you an example of this. So my mom, Rosalind, who is our clinical director, she's been teaching families the Doman Method for 45 years, was recently talking to a young mom. The young mom had an 18-month-old baby, and the mom very legitimately was starting to get concerned about speech development. So she said, my child is 18 months, but only has one word of speech. And I know, according to the developmental profile that, Doman International uses, he should have 10 to 25 words. He should be speaking couplets. He's not doing any of that, one word. So this mom was concerned. This was not a mom who came to our clinic. She was just a mom who we know personally, and she was talking to my mom. So what my mom said was, listen, let's not panic. Why don't you just start out with 20 minutes of walking with him in a day? Because walking and running builds the respiratory system, and respiration is so important for speech development. So my mom said, just do that 20 minutes a day. Let's try it for maybe a couple weeks and get back to me. Within a few weeks of doing 20 minutes of walking and running, this child was saying many more words. Okay. And now that child, this was several months ago, that child now has, dozens of words, is speaking in couplets, and I think even just recently said his first sentence. Keep in mind, he's like 2 now, so he's probably right where he should be in terms of his speech development. So I tell you that whole story because the reason why his speech developed is because he had the opportunity to walk and run. But a parent may not connect certain things. So maybe your child has started to do certain activities. Maybe it's not even part of a treatment, but that are beneficial for his speech development, right? Learning to read in school, running, because playing a sport, it could be any of those things. But I think Haley, if I maybe had a better concept of the things he's doing in a day, I could probably say to you, just given my experience, maybe it's this, this, and this that's helping his speech development. But I'm sure it's something something has changed. It's not that at 4 years of age, a child who has significant speech delays will usually all of a sudden start speaking much more. Okay. Without intervention. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we're really looking forward to seeing Haley and her son in August. They will be coming to see us in August. Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, listen, I mean, yeah, if we're seeing your son in August, Haley, then I feel very positively about his speech development, because if it's already started to develop before his appointment, I think it'll be even better after.
Yeah. Maybe let your staff coach know.
Yeah.
That you're seeing changes, and they could have some insight as well into how to even boost that.
Great point. Thank you, Colleen. All right. We have a comment here from Ashley, who's, I think, just commenting on the question from the B Family blog. And Ashley says, I started my son who has Down syndrome on the program soon after I found them, meaning Doman International, and he's doing great. We just did an in-person appointment and we came away so encouraged. Thank you, Ashley. I really, really appreciate it. It was great meeting you all at the appointment. All right, great. Well, listen, everyone, we still have a bit of time. So you can type your questions into the comment box, or if you're brave, you can click on the link that you'll find in the comments. You'll see a comment from Doman International on YouTube or Facebook that says join here with the link. If you click on that link, you can come into this session, into the webinar session, and ask Colleen and I your questions. If you're on WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, sorry. If you're on Instagram, if you scroll up, you should see the StreamYard link to join the webinar.
I'm thinking, Spencer, that maybe for next week or the week after, I will find a parent who would like to be on camera, because we had that mom a few weeks back, and it was so nice. It was really a joy to be able to talk directly and have a conversation. And
Yeah.
I think she really enjoyed it too. She told me later that it was not as daunting as at first, because she didn't mean to click on the link.
Yeah. Well,
but it worked out.
It worked out. Yeah, that's great. And for everyone who's here, if you can't do it today, feel free to reach out to Colleen and say, hey, Colleen, can I get on next week or something like that? And we can really do, we can have a back and forth, which would be great.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. The next question comes from Annabella. And Annabella, I'm just copying your question over so I can show everyone what you say here. So Annabella is asking, could you talk a little bit about the reflex primary reflex, because it has been a topic trending on social media for the developmental milestones in our children. Okay, so reflex integration definitely has been a topic that has kind of exploded, I'd say, over the last maybe 5 years with children with special needs. And, the first thing that I will say, which will sound like I'm bragging, but I'm not bragging about myself, I'm bragging about my grandfather, is that my grandfather was talking about the importance of reflexes. Glenn Doman was talking about the importance of reflexes 70 years ago, and he was talking about the importance of the startle reflex, for example, which is the natural baby startle response to a loud and sudden sound, and how important that is. He was talking about the light reflex, which is the pupil response to light, and how important that is for vision. Talked about the Babinski reflex, which is an important reflex that demonstrates whether there's injury in the cortex of the brain. And so he was talking about these reflexes 70 years ago. There's no question reflexes are important for two reasons. They're important, first of all, because they help you evaluate and sometimes even diagnose neurodevelopmental issues. So from our standpoint, every child that comes to an appointment at Doman International, we check certain reflexes because they're like a window into the brain, right? Think about watching a show in an emergency room of the hospital TV shows. What happens when an unconscious person comes into the ER? First thing the doctor will do is open the eye and check the light reflex, because to a certain degree, it tells them how responsive the brain is in that moment. So reflexes are central for evaluating neurological function and development. But the second reason is there are certain reflexes that if you stimulate them, they can be helpful for brain development. And so with children on our program, if they have difficulty with a specific reflex, we will stimulate that reflex, as long as there are kind of two important caveats here. There are certain reflexes that you could stimulate them 1,000 times and they won't change on their own. There are certain, like the Babinski reflex is a good example of this. If I stimulated a child's Babinski reflex 1,000 times, wouldn't change it, because most of the time when a child has a Babinski, it's because their motor development is delayed, and the Babinski reflex is helpful for motor development. Okay, that's why we have it. And so what we found is if we help a child's motor development, we get them walking and running, the Babinski reflex goes away, right? So instead of stimulating it 1,000 times, we just get the kid walking and it goes away. So sometimes it's actually not productive to stimulate a reflex. And that's an important thing to say. I have to point this out because I do sometimes see certain reflex integration programs where they're stimulating every single possible reflex because the child has an abnormal response. But I know from experience, and this is one area where we benefit from having generations of experience, because I was able to learn from my grandfather and my parents, you can stimulate the Babinski reflex 1,000 times, it's not going to do anything, right? They spent years trying that, it didn't work, so don't waste time trying it, right? And that's one of the great benefits of doing something for a long period, like what we've done with the Doman Method, is you learn not just the things that work, you learn the things that don't work, okay? And so sometimes we learned 50 years ago it didn't work, but now there are practitioners out there who say we got to stimulate this reflex. It doesn't work properly. So now they're going through the experience we learned 50 years ago, if that makes sense. So that's I think that's where we stand. In terms of, there are things that we are learning from reflex integration programs out there. Okay. So let me give an example. Like one new form of patterning that we use is called ATNR patterning, which comes from asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. So this is one of these reflexes that, I think about 5 years ago, my wife, Melissa, learned about ATNR patterning from a physical therapist who put videos online. And Melissa said, let me try this with some of our kids. And big success, good for cognitive development, So now we use ATNR patterning we've used it with hundreds of children. So if reflex integration drives results, we absolutely include it. But if we find that it seems like it's not worth the time, we will not continue with it. And I think that's really the important thing. And that you can only gain that from experience, right? Doing the simulation and seeing, does it work? And so that's where we stand with that, Annabella. Hopefully that's a helpful answer.
I like to tell parents as well when I talk to them and they bring up things like this, that they're like, oh, maybe my therapist said this would be a good idea, or I saw this on social media and it seems to be benefiting these kids. For some kids, something like that by itself could be a key, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for others, not. And without a holistic view of each individual child, you really can't tell if that particular thing is going to make the difference as well. So I tell parents, you really do need to have that whole understanding and be able to evaluate their whole development to pick the things that are going to make the difference, and we never want to waste anyone's time.
Yeah. And I would just be beware. Can you be beware? No, that doesn't
You
sound
can be aware.
right. Be
Be
beware,
aware.
but you can't be
This
beware.
is,
Okay.
this is true.
This is
Be
why I have
wary.
Ollie. Yeah, be wary. That's what I was thinking. I would be wary of any one size fits all programs. Okay. So any program that's just like, we do primary integration, reflex integration with all the kids. I really question that because, first of all, there are probably a lot of techniques in there that aren't going to be helpful for certain children. Like if I use ATNR patterning as an example, it's only really helpful for certain children. Like it's helpful with kids who might have developmental delays, cognitive issues, hyperactivity or organizational problems. But with a child with cerebral palsy who has uncontrolled bodily movements or spasticity, it is not the right approach. There are other things that we could do with those kids that are far more helpful. So it's also about knowing, like, if I go to a place and there's like, here's the program, everyone, that would be a cause for concern for me. All right, let's see. We've got more questions that have come in. So we have a comment here from Evelyn. So Evelyn says, I'm Evelyn, and I'm thrilled to share our family's journey with cerebral palsy. My brother, who lives with this condition, has made incredible progress, and I'm so grateful. Reading the Doman Method book was a turning point for us. It gave me the encouragement and the tools to support my brother's development. Today, I'm overjoyed to see that he can now speak words. Even though forming full sentences is still a challenge, the breakthrough has filled our hearts with hope and joy. I want to express my deepest gratitude for the Doman Method and the impact on our lives. It's a testament to the power of love, dedication, and the right support. Wow, Evelyn, that is beautiful. Evelyn, out of interest, Colleen, do you know Evelyn?
I know Evelyn very well. This is
Okay.
Nixon's sister. They live in Uganda.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, because I remember now I remember Evelyn well. But that is fantastic. Evelyn, I'm so happy to hear that. Wow, that is, and the fact that he's talking, Evelyn, is such an amazing thing. And going back to what, again, I don't know, is it Nixon, did you say?
Nixon, yeah, is her brother.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what activities you've been able to do with him, Evelyn, but obviously whatever you're doing, keep going with it. I'm so glad the Doman Method has been a part of his him making huge strides. But if he is more if he has progressed in his motor development, if he's moving more than he was before, going back to my comment before, motor development often helps speech development. And so, I wonder if those things are connected. But, keep up the great work, Evelyn. That's all I have to say. Colleen, anything else? Oh, it's Nixon. Evelyn yeah, his name is Nixon. Yeah.
Nixon. That's what
Nixon.
I said.
Yeah. I guess because it's the spelling is different. I think Nixon like Nixon, but
were you? Oh, yeah, Nickson. Sorry, you were. Okay, I didn't know you were. Yeah.
So any other words you want to share, Colleen?
I'm so glad, Evelyn, that you joined us, and yeah, and I owe you a message about some other things too. So we're talking about that, but it's pretty incredible. You're an incredible person, and yeah, I'm happy for your family. Glad to know you.
Yeah, it's so important that brothers and sisters are involved in the lives of their special needs siblings. Brothers and sisters, of course, there's no one more important in the life of a child than parents. No one can supplant a parent. But having worked with families for 18 years now, I can say that very often when I have a sibling, older brother or sister in the office with us at our clinic, they often can answer questions about their sibling faster and more accurately than their parents can. Like if I say, how many words does the child say? Parents will say, oh, maybe 2 words or 3 words. And the sibling will say, come on, it's 10. And they'll name off all 10 words. And the parents are like, yeah, you're right. So siblings they have a deep understanding and respect for their siblings. They often also have a better understanding of the innate intelligence, I find, of their siblings. I think adults can sometimes kind of lie to themselves or trick themselves into thinking that a child with special needs, they might say, he seems smart, but he doesn't talk, so I guess he doesn't understand. But I don't think siblings fall for that. They realize, no, he's smart. I can see it in his eyes. And so, yeah, siblings are amazing. I'm so glad you're a part of it, Evelyn. And yeah, it was great. One family was in our clinic last week, and there were 5 siblings there in the office listening to the treatment program as we were outlining it. And I was teaching the program, and I was looking at mom and dad, and I saw the 5 siblings, behind, like shaking their heads and listening in. And that is just such a powerful thing for a child, right? To have older siblings who are fully on board and fully appreciate the innate intelligence of the kid. You just, there's no replacement for that. All right, we've got a question here from Sandra. Sandra is saying, please, can you talk about teaching a second or third language to kids with speech problems? My speech therapist recommended only to teach one language. Okay. I chuckle at this one, Sandra, because this is actually one of my favorite questions, because it gives me the chance to rant about something. But I'll try to keep it short. So I cannot tell you how wrong it is to tell a parent of a child with special needs to only speak one language to their child. I used to be nicer about this and say, there's no scientific evidence that supports that speaking multiple languages to a child is harmful. And that's true. There's no evidence that shows that speaking multiple languages to a child is negative. In fact, any research that's ever been done shows that children that grow up in multilingual households tend to have higher levels of understanding and more developed speech. Okay. So why do professionals say this? It's because first of all, it's a myth. And myths can travel very easily and quickly. And in my opinion, the reason why they keep repeating this lie, by the way, when I say lie, I don't mean that they know it's a lie. They think it's truth. That's why they're telling you. But the reason why is they've jumped to a lazy conclusion, right? What happens is it's usually a family of immigrants enters their office. And in this family, they speak at least 2 languages. And the child doesn't speak. Now, the child doesn't speak because the child has a neurodevelopmental condition. Their brain development hasn't been normal. That's why they don't talk. But the professional, when the parents say, why isn't my kid talking? He's 3. Because of their ignorance, they search for an answer and they go, oh, it's because you're speaking multiple languages to your child, right? It's a lazy answer based on ignorance. And it would almost be like laughable if it wasn't so bad, if it wasn't so negative for the consequences for children. Children do better when they're spoken to in multiple languages, and here's why. First of all, if you grow up in an environment with 2 languages, it doubles the linguistic environment that the child is growing up in, right? If you grow up in an environment with 3 languages, it triples the linguistic environment. So it's very good. It's very stimulating for a child to hear, that this is a book, but in Spanish, it's libro. That's very stimulating, right? It's good for the brain. It helps those neurons make more connections. So that's the first thing. Second of all, children are linguistic geniuses. They learn languages quickly and easily. Adults are the ones who have problems with learning languages, not kids. So the idea that learning multiple languages is harmful speech development is absolutely untrue. And by the way, I actually find with kids with special needs, when they grow up in multilingual households, it helps their speech because now they have more options to choose from when they're talking. Imagine if you can't produce certain sounds. Let's say half of the sounds you can't produce. Well, maybe you can't say libro in Spanish because it's too hard, but maybe book, you could say book, something like that. And now if you have two languages, you have two options. But if you have one language, you only have one option. And if you can't do that one option, you're done. Okay. So absolutely, it's a positive thing. And I hate to say just ignore the person who tells you that, but that is what I'm saying. Ignore them. There are certain topics I'm kind of willing to debate. This is one that there's no debate in. Colleen, anything you want to add to that?
I was glad that you made the point that it is difficult for adults to learn languages. And that's, I think, another reason why they jump to this conclusion and why that has such staying power. Because adults forget what it's like to be a kid. We grow out of it. And so then we think, oh, well, you're having trouble with this because I would have trouble with that. But it's not at all the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. Your child will only be confused by the languages that they don't hear. Okay. That's not the ones they do hear. All right. Maybe this is our last question. Do you have a clinic in California? Where? So we twice a year send staff to California to see families there. And we have been going to see families in Santa Barbara, California. We go to Santa Barbara, California because a local foundation there, the Turner Foundation, gives us a location to see the families, and that's incredibly helpful, and we're very grateful for that. And so we've been going probably at this point to California for at least 4 years, I would be my guess. And we're going next in June. We're actually going from June 20th to 22nd. And so if you're interested in bringing your child to see us there, you can absolutely talk to Colleen. I do want to say that spaces are limited. I think, for example, we can see 12 families in California. And so spaces are limited based on the staff that we're sending. So if you're interested, definitely reach out and talk to Colleen. Colleen, I'm putting up your phone number.
That's
Anything
great.
else? Anything else you want to add to what I said?
Just that it is a live evaluation, and then your program would be taught remotely in online sessions. So the staff will see your child in person for the evaluation. They'll get information from you, and then they'll design the program and teach you online like the following week.
Yeah, and I'm also realizing that if you're coming for your first appointment, we would bring you on a specific day to see our medical director and get cleared, for our program. So if you're coming for a first appointment, that makes it even more important to talk to Colleen soon because we have a very limited number of appointments. All right. Colleen's number is there. Yeah. Oh, okay. This mom is saying that she has a call with you today, Colleen.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. We'll talk then.
Yeah. She says hope to meet you in June.
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, listen, everyone, thanks so much for joining. And by the way, in our future sessions, as I said, if you're a parent and you want to get on to this webinar and pick Colleen's brain for 20 minutes, have like a back and forth about an area of your child's development, you're absolutely welcome to do so. Reach out to Colleen via email, via text message, and she will make sure that you have the link to join us in the future. Okay. And I am going to look also to have other parents on in future sessions so I can interview them about their experience on the program. Colleen, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great week. See you all next Monday.
Bye.